Hello, welcome to the Knife Yak channel. Today I'm going to talk about Scottish bagpiper knives. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I am a bagpiper. And when I wear a kilt, I wear a Sgian Dubh, which is this thing right here. This is the traditional knife worn with Scottish Highland attire. When you wear a kilt, you wear long stockings or hose, which look like this. They're very long, and they're rolled over at the top. And at the top end, you wear a garter with flash ribbons on there, ornamental flashes in whatever color, and these Velcro things hold your socks up at the top. And typically the person in Scottish attire would wear the small knife. It's called a Sgian Dubh, Sgian Dubh, Sgian Dubh. And that's a Celtic phrase that means black knife, because these are generally black. And typically they're very cheap and very poor quality as far as knives go. This is stainless steel. It's extremely thick behind the edge. And if you look at it close, you can see I've tried to actually make it sharp and functional. When you buy one of these, it's mostly just an ornament, and it's not really designed to be good at cutting anything. Most people don't actually use them for cutting stuff, although I have seen bagpipers try, and it usually doesn't work very well. But yeah, I tried to sharpen this one, and you can see I've tried to reprofile that, but the blade is so thick it just doesn't even really want to be sharpened. And the steel is extremely poor quality. It doesn't hold an edge, and it's impossible to, it doesn't really take an edge. It's kind of like sharpening a stainless steel piece of soap. But you can see I've done my best there. But the handles traditionally would be made out of wood. They could be carved ebony or black wood. This one's just molded plastic. And oftentimes they would have perhaps a gemstone set in the top. This one's just cast some kind of cheap metal. I don't even think it's pewter. It's just, I don't even know what that is. It's just super cheap. You'll see that there's some file work up here at the top. I don't know that that's actually made with a file. It's probably just molded in there, but it's kind of a piece of crap as far as knives go. But it has this flimsy kind of a leather, or maybe that's a fake leather, little sheath to put it in with a little thistle embossed on it. So this goes in there like that, and you just tuck it into your sock. You'll notice that one side has no carving on it, or no ornamental simulated carving, unlike the front, which has this sort of a crosshatch, kind of a basket weave. This back part is flat and has no ornamental markings at all, because this is the part that would go next to your leg. When you stick that into your sock, that's at the top of your calf, just below your knee. And this thing would be pushed down into your sock about that far, so you'd only see about half of the handle anyway. So this part's not visible to the public. You'll notice there's a little thistle thing on top of there, the symbol of Scotland. So I don't even really want to tell you about this, but I will mention that in a typical Scottish outfitter catalog, this is the catalog from J. Higgins. He's a Scottish outfitter. He sells bagpipe supplies and Scottish uniforms and Highland regalia and stuff like that. But this is the front cover of one of his catalogs from 2005, and you can see it features the Sgian Dubhs on the front. There's J. Higgins, www.jhiggins.net. It's actually a pretty good supplier. We bought our band kilts from them, and I've had good dealings with J. Higgins for a number of years. It's a good dealer. But anyway, this shows you the Sgian Dubhs with some of the more elaborate configurations. And on this page here, you can see and kind of get a sampling of some of the different patterns. Sometimes they have staghorn handles, and they have different kinds of symbols. So you got an Irish one with the shamrocks, and you got the lion rampant and a stag. And you can get these with your clan crest if you're into that sort of thing. And there's also a larger knife that's called a dirk, And these are worn with Scottish regalia also. It's a much longer blade. And again, it has that sort of a cairngorm gem at the top. That's optional, but they come in different levels of fanciness. And you can see that, 20 years ago, these were selling for about $400, but they're not really very good knives. They can be, I suppose, but I've just never seen one that had any real redeeming value as a cutting implement. So that's where cold steel comes into play. Many, many years ago, before it was discontinued, Cold Steel used to manufacture a Sgian Dubh. And this is called the Culloden. Let's get this up in here where we can see it. There were actually two sizes. There was a Culloden, and this is actually the mini Culloden, which is approximately the same size as the Sgian Dubh that we've been talking about. Let's get it down here on the table where you can see it. And as you can see, let's get this over here where you can see it. Okay, so size-wise, it's about the same, and it has the same shaped handle. This kind of a, I don't know what you call that, hourglass kind of a shaped handle. That's pretty normal. It even has a simulated cross-hatching pattern for grip. But this one is actually highly, highly functional. I don't know what kind of steel this is, but back then, I think Cold Steel was using carbon 5 or carbon V or whatever it is. I don't know. But this is a single-edged. These are always single-edged, by the way. And it has this file work at the top, as the traditional Sgian Dubh generally does. And you can see that this one is actually hollow ground, and it has a very sharp edge. This edge kind of got damaged a little bit from being inserted into this plastic sheath. It looks like Kydex, but it's not really. It's just some kind of molded thermoplastic. But the sheath is the same on both sides, so you can put this in oriented either way, and it just fits in there like that. It's kind of hard to pull this out without mongering up the edge because it has a very tight fit. It has a craton handle, similar to a lot of other Cold Steel knives. Very sharp at the point, and the blade stock is not terribly thick. I don't know what that is. Maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. I don't know, but it's not very thick. It actually is quite functional as a tool or as a weapon or as a reed scraping implement or whatever. So, anyway, so this is called the Culloden. If you know your history, Culloden was a battle fought between the British and the Scottish. There was a rebellion in 1745 against the British, and in that uprising, the Jacobites fought against the British and lost disastrously. From the Jacobite standpoint, the Jacobite rebellion was put down in a battle in 1746, and that marked the end of the Jacobite rebellion. And so if you're interested in Scottish independence, that's been kind of a dark day in the history of Scotland ever since. But the Scots fought heroically, and the knife is named after the battle. So there you go. This knife I've never actually used to cut anything with. It still has the factory edge. I just wore this in my sock as I would have worn this other one. But with the peace of mind and confidence and integrity that I require of my knives, I always want my knives to be able to be knives. I would never happily wear a knife just as a decoration. They always have to be functional. They always have to be capable of doing some kind of serious cutting work. And this one can. I've never made it do it, but it could. So another little interesting point is, if you look at this close, there's actually this pin in the. I don't think that pin has any function because this handle is just molded onto the tang, I guess. But that pin on both sides actually has a kind of a flower pattern. Looks kind of like a little wheel with spokes, but I think that's supposed to be a flower or something. But anyway, it has the same shape as the Scottish Sgian Dubh, in that this part flares away from your leg. You can see the flat part of the handle kind of curves outwards away from your calf, which makes it easier to grab the knife. if you're pulling it out of your sock. And the same way with the traditional ones. That's just the way they're made, right? It's flat on one side with a slight outward curve. So this is just a short video. I just wanted to show you those. Just some stuff in my collection. A little bit of knife knowledge about Scottish attire as it relates to cutlery. And yeah, thanks for watching.